This is truly, like, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney.
This perfectly explains why she's facing such widespread backlash at the moment.
I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. But the reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings. I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much your children love Snow White.
I agree with this sentiment. Just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
Disney Plus took an action that said more than any official announcement ever could. Out of nowhere, the platform silently removed Snow White from its planned digital releases. No trailers, no teaser announcements, no premiere date, just complete silence. For such a big live-action Disney film, this kind of withdrawal is nearly unprecedented.
Zegler just keeps making things worse with the Walt Disney Company. The more that she tries to defend this movie, the more that she tries to spew her agenda onto the general public, it's only making matters worse. Not just for Bob Iger, but for whatever is left of the image of Disney as a whole.
Following the fiasco that unfolded both online and at the box office, executives reportedly chose to minimize their losses and steer clear of fueling the backlash any further.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they're scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
Industry insiders say they were worried about a wave of subscription cancellations and another brutal meme frenzy like the one that engulfed the movie's theatrical run. So they took cover.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
This move reflects more than just a botched release. It signals a complete surrender of the project, and the downfall began well before the film ever hit screens. Rachel Zegler's promotional tour exploded online, but for all the wrong reasons. Rather than generating excitement or highlighting her appeal, she handed the internet months of fodder to feast on.
Oh wow, Snow White flopped. Who is surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most out of touch, and disliked person in her industry, and her industry is Hollywood. And the bad guy is Gal Gadot.
In one video, she chuckled about never having seen the original Snow White, brushing it off as both creepy and old-fashioned. In another, she took shots at the prince, labeling him as a bizarre stalker.
Big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
For Disney enthusiasts, these interviews didn't feel fresh. They felt offensive. Social media lit up with side-by-side clips contrasting the original princess's elegance with Rachel's dismissive remarks. The outcome? When Snow White finally arrived in theaters, audiences weren't coming in with fond memories and anticipation. They came armed with receipts, and plenty chose not to come at all. Then came the notorious royalties comment. During what was meant to be a playful chat about streaming today, Rachel went serious and boldly stated that she deserves to be paid every time someone watches the film.
Stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
The internet didn't react kindly. What came next was a wave of parody videos, snarky tweets, and frustration from everyday movie fans. Many wondered how someone could complain about getting paid while leading a multi-million-dollar Disney production. That remark quickly came to represent a bigger issue: the growing perception of Rachel as entitled, disconnected, and completely missing the mood of the moment. The fact that she made this statement before the film had even debuted only fueled the fire. It cast her as someone seemingly more focused on the paycheck than the part she was playing. Even her co-star couldn't hide the tension. Gal Gadot, who portrayed the evil queen, appeared noticeably distant during their joint appearances, with their Oscars presentation turning out especially uncomfortable to watch.
Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen.
Their work makes the impossible seem possible.
With breathtaking ambition, they create magic that wraps its arms around our wildest imaginations.
Here are the nominees for Best Visual Effects.
No eye contact, stiff posture, and a smile that disappeared faster than a trailer preview. Behind the scenes, sources claim Gal had already distanced herself. She met her responsibilities but kept her exchanges with Rachel to a bare minimum. Observers saw the unspoken message. Gal had no reason to associate with a PR nightmare, and her silence said it all. The studio likely expected their star power to create chemistry, but instead, it only amplified the growing rift between the two leads. And then there was the rewrite. Rachel pushed for a new version of Snow White, one without a prince, romance, or the dwarfs. She marketed it as a feminist reboot for today's audience, but fans weren't sold.
Snow White gets her name, not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know Rachel Zegler would be a miscast in that sense. Instead, she gets her name from surviving a snowstorm.
That audiences walk away from this film with an understanding of the true meaning of fairness, of what it means to be fair in this world. There is a message that's been carried on for almost 90 years now from the original animated classic. That is, fairness is what is within. Fairness is to do with your heart, the way you treat the people around you, and it has nothing to do with what you look like, and that's the misunderstanding between Snow White and the evil queen. I think it's such an important message, and the way that Disney has elevated it and brought it to this new audience is very special.
To many, it came across as a shallow attempt to slap trendy buzzwords onto a beloved classic without grasping what made the original so adored. Sure, stories evolve, but this version seemed more focused on making a statement than telling a story. The enchantment was gone, replaced with a lecture. Disney has always been able to blend heart with a message, but this time, they missed the mark. And Rachel became the face of that misstep. All these moments combined into something Disney couldn't fix with a few edits or a rebrand. The backlash wasn't just about the film itself, it was about how the lead actress mishandled the legacy, mocked the audience, and failed to understand the weight of the role. It's rare for Disney to pull a release like this, but in this case, streaming Snow White might have done more harm than good. Rachel Zegler became the central figure in a PR cautionary tale, and at least Disney knew when to pull the plug. By the time the film made it to theaters, the damage had already been done. Disney's reputation took a hit, fans were furious, and Rachel Zegler found herself known more for her controversies than her performance. And that was just the beginning, because the real nightmare wasn't what happened on screen. It was everything happening behind the scenes. And the second half of this story? It only gets worse. Snow White didn't just flop, it bombed. With a $45 million opening and a staggering 1.6 IMDb rating, the film didn't just stumble, it crashed. And the worst part? No one was shocked. The box office failure wasn't a surprise. It was practically inevitable. From the moment the casting was revealed, the signs of disaster were clear. Fans didn't just skip the film, they practically celebrated its failure. Memes flooded timelines, and reaction videos were popping up before opening night even ended. Disney had somehow managed to create the first anti-fairy tale, but it wasn't a clever subversion. It was a public rejection, a slow-motion disaster disguised as a princess story. Then, in the middle of all the chaos, came the one twist nobody saw coming. An AI-generated Rachel Zegler profile suddenly appeared on OnlyFans, amassing thousands of followers almost overnight. It wasn't real, it wasn't verified. But for a moment, the internet wasn't so sure. And that brief confusion said it all. Rachel's public image had reached an unsettling intersection of notoriety and intrigue that made people genuinely ask, is this her new direction? Her supporters dismissed it as a cruel prank, while her critics ran wild with speculation. Either way, it became a symbol, a digital joke in a real-life PR disaster. Behind closed doors, Disney was panicking. This wasn't just another underwhelming live-action remake. This was a full-blown theatrical catastrophe. With ticket sales, the movie's performance flatlined, and it quickly became a trending disaster. In a move no one saw coming, theaters began pulling Snow White from primetime slots. Quietly, but steadily. Family matinees were swapped out for safer options, evening screenings were reduced, and in some places, the film was buried so deep in the schedule that finding it would require a map and a flashlight. It was like being kicked out of your own event. And as all of that unfolded, an old chapter from Rachel's rise resurfaced, the forgotten feud over Wicked. Long before she landed the Snow White role, Rachel had been eyeing Wicked, not just any part, but the iconic Alaba. Sources say she teased it online, posted clips of herself singing Wicked songs, and even tried to insert herself into early casting talks. But producers weren't blind to the red flags. They could see the signs of what was coming. The same impulsive behavior she later displayed on Snow White's set, dominating interviews, acting recklessly, and clashing with co-stars, had already started to show during those early Wicked meetings. So, unlike Disney, the Wicked producers made their move early. They quietly cut ties with her before things went south. Now, Rachel's career isn't just stalled, it's hanging in limbo, like a fairy tale gone terribly wrong. Once hailed as the breakout star of West Side Story, she's now Hollywood's cautionary tale. It's not just about the movie's failure or her viral interviews for all the wrong reasons, or even the fact that her co-star Gal Gadot seemed to shrink every time they shared the stage. It's everything. The perfect storm of bad timing, poor optics, unchecked ego, and a fundamental misreading of her audience. What's even more surreal is that Rachel doesn't seem to grasp it. She's still posting, still performing, and still preaching the importance of being heard. But the real question isn't whether she's talking, it's whether anyone's listening. Studios aren't interested, co-stars aren't stepping up, fans aren't showing up, and the silence speaks louder than anything she's ever tweeted. The industry isn't ruthless, it's strategic. Right now, it's calculating the cost of ever trusting Rachel Zegler with another major franchise. From Disney darling to internet punchline, her fall from grace didn't happen all at once. It unfolded piece by piece, from soundbite to soundbite, until what was once one of the most anticipated fairy tale reboots became a career obituary. And in an ironic twist, this story doesn't end with a prince or a kiss. It ends with a warning. A reminder that in Hollywood, being the fairest of them all means knowing when to stop talking and when to stop trying to rewrite the whole story.